In 2020, the top coasters from Canada, Mexico, and the United States all came together to fight for the prestigious crown of being North America's best coaster. Many thrill machines came to compete, but in the end it was between two world-class coasters, Fury 325 and Steel Vengeance. In the end, Steel Vengeance dominated the field and came out on top. Can Steel Vengeance continue its dominance this year, or will a newcomer dethrone the king? 64 coasters came to compete, and you voted the winner on our Instagram page. And now it's time to reveal the champion of the 2021 North American Coaster Tournament. Hello everyone, and welcome to the 2021 North American Coaster Tournament presented by Destination Thrills. I'm Kala Hale here, and I'm going to be your host this evening, taking you through all the results of the tournament that we did. It's been a couple weeks now. I'm going to be honest, I've been under the weather, and so I've been waiting to kind of feel better to record this video, and so now I'm feeling a little bit better and I'm ready to present these results. And it was a fantastic tournament. I had so much fun with the first North American Coaster Tournament we did back in 2020, right before COVID, and I've kind of been waiting to do another North American Coaster Tournament because a lot of coasters have not had the chance to open up that were supposed to happen in 2020. And so now that coasters are starting to open up, now that theme parks are somewhat back to normal, I think we're ready for another major North American Coaster Tournament. Now, I know I've labeled this as 2021 and we are well into 2022 here, but the reason why I wanted to say that this is the 2021 North American Coaster Tournament is that we will not be including any new coasters from the 2022 season. So later on down the road, when people watch this video, I don't want them to be confused on why Iron Gwazi or Icebreaker weren't in this tournament. So we have a lot to unpack today. We have a lot of battles to get into, and to keep this video from being like an hour long, I'm gonna try to go through some of the results pretty quickly compared to other tournaments that I've done. First off, let's start off with some rules. We are gonna have 64 coasters in this tournament. I tried my best to pick the 64 best coasters in North America. Again, that's pretty subjective, and I've tried to use results from past tournaments into shaping this bracket. So there are gonna be some good coasters that are left off. I understand that we're not gonna make everybody happy with this bracket, but I tried my best to pull together the 64 best coasters in North America. This will be a single elimination bracket, just like our other tournaments that we do, and they were all due through one-on-one battles on my Instagram story. The coaster with the most votes got the win and moved on to the next rounds, all the way until we had just one coaster left standing. All right, now that we've got the rules out of the way, let's quickly go through the bracket. And to make the bracket easier to read, I broke it up into 4 regions. So let's start out with our first region, the Diamond region, which has the #1 seed overall on the tournament, Steel Vengeance. Steel Vengeance going off against Thunderbird. And then we have Behemoth versus Tatsu. We also have Jersey Devil Coaster versus Goliath at Six Flags over Georgia. That should be a fun match. And then we have Millennium Force, the 16 seed, going up against Incredible Hulk from Universal Studios Islands of Adventure. We had Twisted Colossus, the #9 seed this tournament, versus the Beast at Kings Island. Apollo's Chariot versus Diamondback at Kings Island. And King the Ka versus Max Force. 2 really good launch coasters going up against each other. That should be a fun matchup. And then Copperhead Strike versus the #8 seed, Lightning Rod. What's exciting about this region is that it could have an RMC versus RMC regional final. 2 of the best RMCs out there, Lightning Rod versus Steel Vengeance. That could be a fun matchup. We could also see an upset from Twisted Colossus. Also keep an eye out for Millennium Force. I know Millennium Force has a lot of fans out there. Also keep my eye on Max Force and Diamondback in this region. All right, let's head down to the Ruby region. This is gonna feature our #5 seed Velocicoaster taking on a fellow Intamin coaster, Fahrenheit. Then we have Goliath at Six Flags Great America versus Nitro at Great Adventure, Wicked Cyclone versus Top Thrill Dragster, the brand new Texas Stingray versus Phantom's Revenge. Phantom's Revenge will be our #12 seed. Then we have #13 seed Twisted Timbers going up against Hades 360. A lot of fans in the 2020 tournament said I should have included Hades 360, so I have done that this time. We'll see how it does. It does have a tough matchup, I understand that, against Twisted Timbers, but we'll see how many votes it gets in that matchup. Then we have Accelerator versus Time Traveler, Montu versus Steel Curtain, and Kumba versus the #4 seed in Maverick. Again, the fun thing about this region is it could have an Intamin regional finale with Velocicoaster versus Maverick. That's going to be a matchup to watch out for. Phantom's Revenge, Top Throw Dragster, Twisted Timbers, Accelerator could all play spoiler in this region, so we'll have to keep an eye out for those coasters. All right, let's move on to the Sapphire region. This is going to feature the number 3 seed overall, El Toro versus West Coast Racers. This is the first time West Coast Racers has been in the North American Coaster Tournament. Unfortunately, it got the worst draw here, as it's going to go up against El Toro, which finished in the top 4 last year. Then we have Boulder Dash versus Mystic Timbers, Iron Rattler versus Medusa Steel Coaster, Griffin versus Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland, X2 versus Raging Bull. Then we have Twisted Cyclone versus the Raptor Clones, Phoenix versus Intimidator at Carowinds, and then we have Banshee versus the Voyage. The Sapphire region should have been called the Wooden Coaster region because we have some amazing wooden coasters in this bracket. El Toro, Boulder Dash, Mystic Timbers, Phoenix, the Voyage. I definitely expect a wooden coaster to come out of this region as victorious and into our semifinals. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And personally, I would like to see El Toro versus the Voyage, the rematch from the first ever battle that I did back in 2019. I really want to see that rematch here to see if El Toro would still hold on to the victory. And finally, we have the Emerald region, which is Intimidator 305 versus Afterburn. Intimidator 305 has the 7th seed in this tournament. Then we have Superman the Ride versus Storm Runner, Outlaw Run versus Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure, TMT Shell Raiser versus Sky Rush, and then we have Orion, the number 15 seed, versus Renegade. Then we have Storm Chaser versus Mako, Pandemonium versus Gold Striker, and New Texas Giant versus Fury 325. We have 3 Giga Coasters in this one region, and it would not be surprising to see one of these Gigas moving on to the semifinals from this region. Definitely excited to see a potential matchup between Orion versus Fury 325. Also, that Mako versus Orion matchup could be fun as well if Mako is able to get past Storm Chaser. And then, of course, if Intimidator 305 and Fury 325 go all the way to the end, then we'll have that matchup, which should be very close in my opinion. So some good matches are about to happen in this tournament, so I think it's time to get to these results. Again, I'm not going to walk you through every single matchup as it would take forever, so here are the results of the first round. All right, we had a crazy first round, some interesting upsets here. Again, I'm not gonna go through all of them, but the one that stood out to me was Max Force barely beating out King Ka. That was huge. We also had Nitro beating Goliath at Six Flags Great America, and then Top Thrill Dragster just beating out Wicked Cyclone with 51% of the vote. We also had some upsets in my opinion. Time Traveler beating out Accelerator, Outlaw Run beating out Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure. So Silver Dollar City seems to have some bit of an advantage here just because I know a lot of my fans are in the Branson area or are big fans of Silver Dollar City. So just keep that in mind. There may be some Silver Dollar City bias in this tournament, but both those coasters moving on. And then we have to talk about the tie. Superman the Ride versus Storm Runner. Superman the Ride had 256 votes. Storm Runner had 253 votes. So Superman the Ride moved on with just 3 votes. That was the closest match of the first round. Other than that, I feel like a lot of matches played out how I thought they would. Maybe the Mako versus Storm Chaser one as well was a bit of an upset, but everything else seemed to play out how it should have. All right, so now that we're done with the first round, let's get into the second round matchups. All right, now that we've gotten through the second round, let's just go over some of the highlights here. Obviously, a lot of the seeds moving on through the next round, like Steel Vengeance, Millennium Force, etc. A couple matches that were a little bit tighter than I thought they would be. We had Phantom's Revenge beating out Top Throw Dragster, which is 58% of the vote, and then Twisted Timbers only beating out Time Traveler by 57%. I thought those were some crazy close matches. And then, in my opinion, a big upset here. Iron Rattler beat out Leviathan with 67% of the vote. That was not an upset I was expecting. Again, with Leviathan being in Canada, I don't know if a lot of my viewers have had the chance to ride it versus Iron Rattler, so that could have played a factor there. But yeah, Iron Rattler, a good coaster, is going to be in our Sweet 16. And then, of course, we had two 50-50 splits. We had Outlaw Run, Sky Rush, and probably the biggest upset of the tournament because Outlaw Run and Sky Rush actually tied in votes as well. Outlaw Run had 242 votes and Sky Rush had 242 votes. Now let me just say, knowing that close to 500 people are voting, I never expected that I would ever have an exact tie in voting in these tournaments. So I never really prepared for a tie, and it's something that I'm definitely going to change for future tournaments. I'm going to have something in place. But we actually had an exact tie in votes. And so what was funny is before this match wrapped up, I posted this on my Facebook page, and a friend of mine, Mike, actually commented on my post and said, I don't have Instagram, but I will vote Outlaw Run. And I joked with him, not thinking this was actually going to happen, but I joked with him and said, well, if we have a tie, you can be the tiebreaker. Well, sure enough, we had the tie, and so he voted Outlaw Run, and that is going to be the tiebreaker for this tournament. I know that's not very formal, and I'm sure Skyrush fans are going to lose their mind that this is how it was determined, but this is how we're going to go with it. I'll make a rule in the future for it. If you have any rule suggestions, put in the comments below. I know some people said I would be the tiebreaker. I don't know how I feel about that, but yeah, leave your suggestions in the comments below. But Outlaw Run is moving on to the Sweet 16, a huge upset against Skyrush. Just the fact that it was tied with Skyrush, in my opinion, was a big upset. And then we also had another 50-50 split. We had Orion versus Mako, and I had a feeling this one was going to be close because they're pretty similar as far as like how the ride style is. And Orion just squeezed this one out with 240 votes to Mako's 236, so just 4 votes there. But Orion is moving on to the Sweet 16 to go up against Fury 325, and we have a great Sweet 16 in place for you here. All right, I know I've been going quicker than normal through these results, but now I'm gonna kind of break these down a little bit more now that we're in the round of 16. So let's start out with our first matchup, and that's gonna be 2 Cedar Point coasters, Steel Vengeance versus Millennium Force. Now, I've done a Cedar Point tournament, and these 2 coasters faced off, and Steel Vengeance won that matchup. I really think Steel Vengeance is gonna win again here. Both coasters are good, but both are very different, and in my opinion, Steel Vengeance just has the more intense, out of control ride that I think a lot of people are the fans of. And of course, Steel Vengeance is the defending champion, so I don't see it going out in the round of 16. All right, and our winner, and moving on, is Steel Vengeance with 85% of the vote, so even a bigger margin, I believe, than the last time these 2 faced off. All right, next up, we have 2 RMC coasters. We have Twisted Colossus from Magic Mountain versus Lightning Rod from Dollywood here. I really don't know how this one's gonna play out. These coasters have not faced off against each other before. Twisted Colossus has obviously the dueling aspect. I think that's a big part in why people like it and what makes it different from other RMCs. Lightning Rod, however, is unique in its own way because it has a launching hill. Like, you launch up a hill. It's not a lift hill. You launch up that thing, and it has a wild experience. It has the infamous quad down. So many good elements to that ride. That's kind of why I think Lightning Rod has the advantage, but we'll see who wins. And indeed, it is Lightning Rod with 75% of the vote, moving on to the next round. All right, our next matchup, we have the brand new Velocicoaster, its first time in the tournament, versus Phantom's Revenge. Phantom's Revenge seeded in this tournament because it is such a good coaster. I love it. But being on both, I prefer Velocicoaster. Velocicoaster just is more modern. It's got so much variety. It has some crazy inversions along with airtime, good turns, animatronics, you name it, Velocicoaster's got it. And I think there's just a lot of hype surrounding the coaster right now that Velocicoaster probably will get the edge due to those factors. And so the coaster moving on to the round of 8 is Velocicoaster with 85% of the vote. Next up, we have Maverick versus Twisted Timbers. Maverick did very well in the last North American coaster tournament that we've done. Also in the Intamin coaster tournament and the Cedar Point tournament that I did a couple years back. Maverick fared very well, I believe in the top 5 in both tournaments. Twisted Timbers hasn't been in a lot of tournaments for me, but it's one of those that it kind of gets a lot of votes, but once it starts going up against really stiff competition, it really doesn't fare very well. I don't know what it is, but Twisted Timbers just against really good coasters just doesn't match up. So I'm gonna give the edge to Maverick here, and our winner, and moving on to the round of 8, is Maverick with 68% of the vote. Next up, we have El Toro versus the Cinderella, you could say, of this tournament, Iron Rattler. Iron Rattler, I did not expect to be in the Sweet 16 here, and we'll see if it gets enough votes, though. El Toro is one tough competitor. It has wiped out its competition so far, and it typically finishes in the top 5 of any tournament that I've done. It also finished in the top 4 of the 2020 North American Coaster Tournament, so needless to say, I'm giving the advantage here to El Toro. And our winner, moving on, is El Toro at 82% of the vote, so El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure moving on. Our next matchup is X2 versus the Voyage. Again, this is another one I expect the Voyage to have the advantage because I have a lot of Holiday World fans. As you might have seen from my top 20 coasters video, I'm also a super big fan of the Voyage. If you want to see the full list, you can click that link in the card above. But Voyage is just a phenomenal ride. I have not, though, been on X2, and so I can't really compare these two yet, but just kind of going off the style of rides I like, I think I would like Voyage just a little bit better. But X2 is definitely going to give Voyage some competition here, but how much is the question, and can it overtake the Voyage in a round of voting? So our winner moving on to the Elite 8 is the Voyage at Holiday World with just 55% of the vote. So a tight battle, but the Voyage is moving on to the Elite 8. Next up, we have Intimidator 305 versus Outlaw Run, and this one could be a nail biter. Outlaw Run upset Sky Rush, which I never saw happening. And because Outlaw Run beat that Intamin Mega Coaster, I have a feeling it could really beat this Intamin Giga Coaster. Now, Intimidator 305 is a lot of people's #1, especially if you like that style of ride, that aggressive speed, heavy G-forces type of ride. Intimidator 305 is your coaster. But there's a lot of RMC fans out here and enough Silver Dollar City fans to put Outlaw Run over the edge. So let's see who's moving on to the Elite 8. And the winner is... wow, Intimidator 305 with 67% of the vote. So 2/3 of the vote there going to Intimidator 305. So very interesting to see why Outlaw Run, tied virtually with Sky Rush, but only gets 1/3 of the vote against Intimidator 305. That's a very interesting thing, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about that in the comments below. All right, last up in our round of 16, we have Fury 325 versus Orion. 2 Giga Coasters here. Orion is new to the tournament. Fury 325 finished second last time we did this tournament. Just hearing comments, I think Fury 325 has the advantage here, but you never know. Maybe Orion will pull out an upset victory here. And the winner, moving on to the Elite 8, is Fury 325 with 87% of the vote. So our Elite 8 is locked in, and it's time to find out who is making it to our semi-finals. This is when a lot of the good coasters start to match up, and some of my favorite matchups that I've been waiting for take place. One of those is our first one, 2 Boss RMCs, Steel Vengeance versus Lightning Rod. This has been a matchup that we talk about all the time. Which one's better? Obviously, over the years, Steel Vengeance has won that conversation. But I tell you what, the more and more people that go out to Dollywood are finding out that Lightning Rod is an incredible ride. So I don't know how many fans Lightning Rod has converted since the last time I did this tournament, but we'll have to see if Lightning Rod stands a chance and could possibly knock off the defending champion, Steel Vengeance. Let's see who wins, and moving on to the semifinals is Steel Vengeance with 80% of the vote, moving on, a big margin of victory. And I kind of analyze these votes as they're coming in through each round to kind of give me some hints on how they're going to fare up against other coasters. And, Steel Vengeance beating Lightning Rod with 4/5 of the vote is huge. It just means that there's not people out there that are tired of seeing Steel Vengeance winning. Maybe they are, but they're still willing to vote for Steel Vengeance and push it over the edge. And I think this is a big sign that Steel Vengeance could repeat as the champion in 2021 here. All right, moving on to Velocicoaster versus Maverick. This matchup, I have no clue what's going to happen because we got Velocicoaster, which is making a debut appearance on this tournament. And then we have Maverick, which fared very well last year and has, again, always performed well in these tournaments. Both are Intamins. Again, Velocicoaster, the advantage here is that it's got the hype. but there's also a lot of Cedar Point fans out there that are going to want Maverick to win this matchup. So this could be another one where we're talking about a tie here. Let's just get into who's going to win. And the winner is... Wow, in surprising fashion, Velocicoaster will be moving on to the semifinals with a 73% vote win. 73%. Steel Vengeance, watch out, because if Velocicoaster is going to beat Maverick by that many percentage points, I think it's going to give Steel Vengeance some competition. Wow, that is going to be a great matchup. And so is Maverick versus Lightning Rod in the consolation bracket. We'll get to all those in a moment. Let's move on to our next matchup, the one I'm most excited about in the Elite Eight, and that's El Toro versus my favorite coaster, the Voyage. I've been wanting to do this rematch for such a long time, and when I was putting the bracket together, I'm not gonna lie, I took the opportunity to put these both in the same region, knowing that there's a good chance they will face off against each other. And I think this is Voyage's chance to really make a statement that El Toro's been dominating that conversation for a while, but I think as more and more people go to Hollywood Nights, they realize what an amazing coaster Voyage is. Even with the trims on, Voyage to me is just a superior coaster than El Toro. And that's no knock against El Toro. El Toro is fantastic. Again, if you go watch my top 20 video, it's on there for a reason. It's fantastic. But to me, Voyage just is too good. But fans tend to have different opinions, obviously, than I do. So let's see who you all chose as the winner. And moving on to the semifinals is... Well, I hate to say it, but El Toro is moving on with 61% of the votes, so still a big 2/3 margin. Doesn't look like Voyage has really gained any traction, at least with my voters. El Toro is still moving on, and congrats to El Toro. I think it's going to be a really fun battle to see El Toro in the Final Four and to see how far it advances from there. Next up, we have Intimidator 305 versus Fury 325, two Giga coasters going at it. Again, this is another matchup that, as I was putting the bracket together, I thought it would be fun to have these two coasters match up in the Elite Eight here, and they both made it. I don't know who's going to win, honestly. I think Fury 325 has the advantage because it finished second last year. It's got a lot of fans, and it also just, in polling on other tournaments and other countdown lists, Fury 325 is always on the top. Now, I have not been on either of these coasters, but Intimidator 305 seems to be like a good coaster if you like that flavor, if that makes any sense. So like if you like those aggressive, strong G-force rides, then you're gonna like Intimidator 305. But if you're like an airtime lover or you're into other elements of coasters and you're not a big fan of positive G's like me, then Intimidator 305 might not be your coaster. And I think because the fan group of Intimidator 305 is very specific, I think that kind of gives the edge to Fury 325 here. The winner and moving on to the semifinals to face off against El Toro is Fury 325 with 72% of the vote. And man, I feel like we're gonna repeat history here. Is Fury 325 going to end up facing off against Steel Vengeance for the second North American Coaster Tournament in a row? That would be something. We'll have to wait and see. But before we get to our semifinal matchups, let's get to the consolation bracket. I always do this in a tournament because I like to keep more matchups going. I hate to just throw out one matchup. I like to see how they would face off in for a 7th place match or a 5th place match. And I think that's exciting for the voters as well. So the winner of this consolation bracket will get 5th place, and then we'll also have a matchup for 7th place for everyone who loses this first matchup. First matchup is Lightning Rod versus Maverick. And again, this is one I thought I was very intrigued to see. Now, Lightning Rod just got knocked off by Steel Vengeance by a lot of percentage points here. And I know Maverick, a lot of people say, is the second best coaster at Cedar Point. So does Maverick have the advantage here? I think it does. But personally, as far as my own rankings, I have Lightning Rod just barely above Maverick. I think Lightning Rod, just that finale is so wild on Lightning Rod that to me, it just seems like a little bit better coaster, but both are pretty solid. So let's see who moves on to the 5th place matchup. And it is Lightning Rod with just 54% of the vote. So a very close matchup here. Lightning Rod will be battling for 5th place and Maverick will be battling for 7th place. Next up, we have Voyage versus Intimidator 305, and I'm sad that Voyage is in this position, but it still has a chance to get some prestige and finish well in this tournament. So we'll see how it stacks up against Intimidator 305. Both coasters couldn't be any more different. I mean, there is really nothing similar to these rides at all. So it really, at this point, comes to what type of coaster do you like? Do you like big, tall, fast steel coasters? Or do you like wild, out of control, a little bit rickety wooden coasters? We'll see what our fans like, and the winner is Voyage with just 55% of the vote, so another close matchup, but Voyage will be facing off against Lightning Rod. Wow, that's going to be a fantastic matchup. That matchup's for 5th place. And then Maverick versus Intimidator 305 for 7th place. 2 solid Intamin coasters. That also will be a crazy matchup we'll have to watch out for. All right, let's get to the semifinals, what we've all been waiting for. And this is the matchup I've been questioning. I didn't know, because this is my first tournament having Velocicoaster participate in. How is it going to do? Is it the #1 coaster? I gave it the 5 seed, being safe, but there's been a lot of hype surrounding this coaster, a lot of buzz, and if any coaster I think is going to take down Steel Vengeance, I think Velocicoaster is the one to do it. So the strong statement there, but if any coaster is going to do it, I really think Velocicoaster is going to be the one. Can Steel Vengeance hold on? Moving on to the championship, with 65% of the vote is Steel Vengeance holding on and is going to be in our championship for a 2nd year in a row. Wow. Velocicoaster put up a good fight, but we'll have to settle for a 3rd or 4th place finish. All right, our next matchup is El Toro versus Fury 325, and this could be the closest matchup of the semifinals. I really don't know who's going to win here. El Toro, really the airtime monster of a wooden coaster that is. Probably one of the better coasters when it comes to the strength of airtime. Then you have Fury 325, which has won so many Golden Ticket Awards. It's won so many other tournaments that I've watched, and it's been on the top of a lot of people's polls. You know, it could really be destiny that we're going to have a repeat final here. I think that's the trajectory that we're on, and let's see how it plays out here. And the winner and the coaster that will face off against Steel Vengeance in our championship is... Folks, I hope you're ready for round 2, as it is Fury 325 with 58% of the vote moving on to the championship. So we will see a rematch, Steel Vengeance versus Fury 325 in the championship. Wow, that is going to be a phenomenal matchup here. We'll have to see what happens in a moment. And then we have El Toro versus Velocicoaster. Don't sleep on that matchup. That's going to be close as well for 3rd place. All right, we're here to the final results of the tournament. Time to find out where these coasters finish off at. And let's begin with our 7th place matchup. We have Maverick versus Intimidator 305, a battle of the Intamins. Both these Intamins are very different as well. Maverick focuses on tight turns, airtime, inversions. Whereas Intimidator 305, like I've been saying, is that super tall, super positive G-force coaster. And I think Maverick is going to have more fans here, and also it's a single point coaster. Those tend to have a little bit of bias in these tournaments. So I'm going to go with Maverick here, but let's see who wins. And the winner of 7th place is Maverick at Cedar Point with 58% of the vote. So congratulations to Maverick, taking 7th place in the North American Coaster Tournament, dropping a few spots from last year. All right, it's time for our 5th place matchup. Voyage finished, I believe, 7th in the 2020. I should have looked that up before I recorded this video, but I believe Voyage finished 7th in the 2020 tournament, and now it's battling out for 5th place. So interesting to see an improvement from that coaster. And Voyage is going up against Lightning Rod. This could be a close one. 2 wooden coasters. Well, I guess now a hybrid coaster and Lightning Rod with the changes. But again, I favor Voyage, but both are very solid. And it doesn't surprise me that these coasters are battling out here for 5th place. And the winner of 5th place of the North American Coaster Tournament is, with just 51%, Lightning Rod taking down Voyage. Wow, that is a close matchup. Woo! You know, honestly, that was very close from being a tie. That's just a crazy close number there, and congratulations to Lightning Rod for taking 5th place. Next up, we have the 3rd place matchup, Velocicoaster versus El Toro. Velocicoaster definitely performed well in this tournament, no matter how it plays out here. Velocicoaster definitely showed up and performed very well. Again, I gave it the 5th seed to be safe, knowing that it could potentially be battling out for 3rd or 1st, but didn't want to risk over ranking it and maybe have it go up against coasters that it shouldn't, if that makes sense. So really, Velocicoaster had to earn this semifinal spot and this 3rd place matchup, and it certainly has. And let's see if it's good enough to earn 3rd place in the tournament against El Toro, which has historically been a phenomenal performer in all of my tournaments. This ought to be a close matchup. All right, our winner of 3rd is Velocicoaster with 60% of the vote. So Velocicoaster in his debut year, finishing 3rd on the North American Coaster Tournament. That is absolutely incredible. And as more and more people get to ride that coaster, because you got to think a lot of people didn't get to ride it in its first year, when more and more people go to ride Velocicoaster, how is it going to move up in future tournaments? We'll have to wait and see for that. Okay, it's time for the rematch, the championship of the 2021 North American Coaster Tournament. We have Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point versus Fury 325. Man, I hope I get to Kara wins this year so I can ride Fury 325, so then I can actually like analyze this matchup if this is going to happen again in the future. I want to be able to analyze this matchup from my experience personally. I just know Steel Vengeance, I've been on it. It's one of the best rides ever built. It has everything, and it also takes all that variety and gives you a long duration, which a lot of new coasters these days do not have. A lot of these new coasters are shorter, whereas Steel Vengeance is a long ride. It seems like it goes on forever. But Fury 325 is no short coaster either, and you know, its height and its speed, and then also its gentleness. Like, I say gentle in a weird way where I mean like it's very easy on your body, whereas like Steel Vengeance, a lot of people have thigh problems with that. So I mean, could Fury 325 pull off the upset? It's possible. I know it had around a third of the vote last year, so it's got a lot to overcome, but we'll see if it makes up the votes. I also think there's some fatigue with Steel Vengeance. You know, a lot of people don't want to see Steel Vengeance win all these tournaments. They want to see a new champion. So will that play a factor here? We'll have to see, and I guess I won't hold out any longer. Let's get to these results. The winner of the 2021 North American Coaster Tournament is Steel Vengeance with 69% of the vote. Congratulations to Cedar Point and Steel Vengeance for winning the second ever North American Coaster Tournament and being the defending champion, now two-time champion of the tournament. What an incredible performance and what an incredible tournament. Thank you all so much for voting. These matchups were so much fun, and it's all because of you guys out there going onto my Instagram page and participating. Again, these tournaments don't happen without you all, so I have to say huge shout out to everyone on my Instagram page who voted, and thank you all so much for being a part of this tournament, and I hope you will join me for future tournaments to come. You know, the 2022 North American Coaster Tournament is going to be pretty awesome because now we're going to be adding Iron Gwazi, we're going to be adding Icebreaker, Pantheon, hopefully, Airy Force 1, hopefully. There is a lot of good coasters coming in, and Steel Vengeance isn't going to have such an easy ride next time. I can guarantee you that. So I'm excited for future tournaments, but this was just so much fun. And I can't say it enough. Thank you all for watching. If you love these tournaments, then please head over to my Instagram page. This is where I do all the tournaments. I know I've been asked to do them on the YouTube community page and other places, but I have so many followers on Instagram that are dedicated to these tournaments that it's just hard for me to take that away from them right now. And they give me like 500 participants, which I think it's awesome to have a huge number like that. And I just don't know what the numbers would be like if I switched it to another platform. So go follow me on Instagram because that's where the next tournaments are going to be at. And if you like watching these tournaments, well, I have plenty more on my channel. I actually just did one for Pennsylvania. So I had the Pennsylvania Coaster Tournament. That had a pretty wild finish as well. One of the closest championships I've ever seen happen on that tournament. So if you want to check that out, click on the card above, and I'll also just leave the whole playlist to the rest of my tournaments in the description below, so check that out as well. Also, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and click it because I have so many more videos coming up, and I have tons of adventures that I'm going to be doing in 2022, along with some other countdowns and tournaments, so you're going to want to stay tuned for all of that. Well, again, Steel Vengeance is the winner of our North American Coaster Tournament for the 2021 year. I'm excited for the 2022 tournament and other tournaments to come. Again, thank you all so much for watching this video. I'm Cullah Hale. Stay safe out there and have a good one.